Hi, this is Earl Hall from The Earl Hall Show, and you're listening to GrokTALK. GrokTALk.
Welcome back to GrokTALK. We are New Hampshire's conservative podcast, New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site,
and the safest podcast in New Hampshire.
We are armed and ready, ladies and gentlemen, and we'd like to welcome you back. Thank you very much to Scott Wilson from the CCDL. He's the president of the Connecticut Citizens Defense League down there. If you are within earshot or you hear this on podcast, April 5th, they're having a huge event. We will post links and information, and you can learn more about that at their website. And, of course, don't forget to check out cnht.org and granitegrock.com. Donate and support this program and all the work that your grassroots organizations do.
Yes. As we have just realized, we need to buy some more equipment.
We need more equipment, so please, please, please give us some money. Thank you. That's our... It's not PBS. We're not going to talk about it every 5 minutes, but every segment we bring it up. And talking about segments, we're into a new one. And this is probably a first for us. We have some dedicated readers and commenters who have provided tons of beneficial information and input to our blog, and they ran into Skip and the folks when we were at a rally.
The 223 rally.
Right, and everybody said hi, shook hands, and we invited them on, and they're here, and we'd like to welcome Alan and Radical Moderate to our podcast. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you.
And we want to say each and every day that you come and give us yet another hit, we appreciate it, but we especially appreciate your comments. And, you know, when I met up with you guys at the 223 rally, I really said we need to do a segment so we know what we do at Granite Rock, because we do it every single day. But I'm kind of curious as to how did you find Granite Rock, and why do you keep coming back to Granite Rock, and what do you think of us, bunch of ADD bloggers?
Well, I honestly, I can't remember how I found Granite Rock. I think I was probably just searching for anything in New Hampshire, and it just, you know, started reading it, and okay, here's someplace that I can, you know, even if I don't agree with everything, at least I can put my 2 cents out there, and people can, you know, either agree with me or not. You know, a lot of places out there where they do a lot of censorship and stuff, and, you know, if you don't agree with the poster, they completely get rid of you and ban you and all that stuff.
That's not us. We will X out naughty words, but we'll leave the content. And
yeah. Oh, I always keep it clean.
Yeah, it's good. Thank you very much. We don't have too many people who, you know, take the language thing too far.
Once in a while, you know, I get all the comments, so that's one reason why you two are here, because you guys are commenting constantly, and we appreciate that. But yeah, you folks never seem to violate my rule number 1. Adult themes, but kid-friendly. There have been some, as Steve has said, that I do have to edit, or I banned, I think, 1 person, period. And then some comments will go up late because you put a link in there. I have to approve the link before it goes up. But, you know, how about you, Rad? How did you find us?
Well, I was looking myself for conservative outlets in New Hampshire. Of course, I live in the state. And originally came here, of course, because it was more conservative leaning at the time. And as we all know, it's changed the other way. So it has become increasingly hard to find any type of conservative voice in New Hampshire. And, you know, once again, as the state has changed, the mainstream media in New Hampshire has changed as well. Whether the dog wags the tail wags the dog, I think it's a mixture of both. But, yeah, that's why I respect you guys so much. You're able to kind of allow that discourse that we really don't have in New Hampshire anymore. The conservative type of...
You talked about the media. It's interesting. When I moved here in 1990, the Union Leader was still the most conservative daily newspaper in America. It is not that anymore.
No.
It is still Republican. It is more moderate Republican at best, but it has gotten very mainstreamy.
Establishment leaning.
Yeah.
It's Rhino Central.
It's definitely not. Yeah, poor Mike had to give up his mic. Mike's micless. And you can call in. They should call in.
They should hire us. We'd make it much more conservative.
We would.
Again.
We would. We wouldn't be like Kathy Sullivan. 603-715-9689 if you'd like to call in and comment along with our commenters about the state of things in the state of New Hampshire.
and that it's specifically Chris P. Bacon, sitting out there in Arizona, one of our other commenters. We've got the line open for you. You got to call in, join us. Just had to say that, guys.
Yeah.
His comments are very eclectic.
Yeah, to put it lightly.
Yes.
He's trying to fill in for Sea Dog, E Dog, who vanished off the face of the earth, but and he does a pretty good job. But he wasn't quite as Sea Dog, E Doggy as Sea Dog, E Dog was. But anyway, so we know you comment on Granite Rock, so there's obviously a sense of activism there and a seed of that sort of thing. What else do you guys do outside of that you would consider to be pro-liberty kind of, Are you doing anything else to shift the landscape? Or are you lurking, watching, paying attention, sharing that with friends and family who won't come down on you like a ton of bricks, like liberal, crazy people?
Well, no, I mean, in my case, I think probably if people look at my comments, they run kind of this in between of Republican and Democrat. As like I said,
radical moderate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
which is a great screen name, by the way.
But I kind of have my own philosophy, and it may seem, I guess, extreme or radical in a way that I'm very passionate in fighting against the progressives and the establishment Republicans. And, I do that, obviously. I try and do as much as I can, given, dealing with work and that type of thing.
Sure, you got work, you got family, you got a life,
right.
And I mean, we know all that very well. I mean, we all have full-time jobs, and this is, it's not just a hobby, even though that's really what it is. It's just something that, I consider to be my midlife crisis moment, because in my mid-30s I discovered that I was really a conservative. I had kind of not been paying any attention to politics for a long time, and that's what got me to be a blogger. And now I do this, I post 1,500, 2,000 posts a year. I do a
Great.
weekly podcast. I try to get to events when I can, but I still got kids in school. I got a wife. I got a house. I got dogs. I got crap you got to do, And so there's only so much you can do. But what we always tell people is do what you can, and always try to make sure that it's not interfering with your life. I mean, you need to be energized, and you need to feel, that people who are getting involved, because
Yes.
the minute they put pressure on their family because of a commitment to a political activity, that's what's going to give first.
Right.
So
exactly.
get them used to it. Put your toe in the water and work your way in, which is what I did.
How about you, Alan?
Since 1996, I was the commander of the 1st Granite State Irregulars militia group, which has been disbanded. Way back when I was actually supposed to be on the Don Rondo show, if you remember him. No?
Not quite.
Don't remember him? Early 90s, late 90s, on Channel 9 in the Sunday mornings.
No?
I was supposed to be on the show, but
before me.
But he actually was sick that day, and they ran a rerun, so I didn't end up being on the show. I've been doing that for a while. I've been running a group called the Sons of Stark, where we take people who and we put them literally as spies in other political organizations.
I love that. We talk about that all the time because the Democrats do it. They all have.
Oh yeah. They do it, but we don't.
Not just trackers, but people who actually. They come to your meetings. They come to your events.
Yep.
They go into your groups and they try to. They did it to the Republican Party.
Well, I can think of a few people that. I could see them being from the other side doing that exact same thing.
You get those No More Labels groups. You get they just create, the progressives create these moderate groups and try to pry their way in to get the independents peeled away and to push their Overton window to the left. That's awesome.
We have proof of infiltration. It's called Jeb Bradley.
Yeah. Scott Brown.
But
Jeb Bradley.
But I started doing a list of all of the different events that the left was doing in New Hampshire, and I would send this list out to various right-wing groups in New Hampshire, saying, "Hey, look, this is what the other side is doing. You really should understand what they're doing and try to at least counter them at some point, or at least understand. Go there and take pictures." Anybody else remember the website Zombie Time? No?
No.
Okay. Zombie Time, he's a guy from California, I think, anyways. But he used to go to the the big rallies that they have up in San Francisco and stuff like that, pretend to be one of them and go walk around and take pictures. And then he would post up basically the most outrageous version.
I do remember that now, yes.
Right. Well, why aren't we doing that?
Sons of Stark, we are.
Exactly.
Well, we actually...
Actually, how do they reach you, by the way? Your Facebook page, anything?
Email? All I have is the email, which is warhorse_03826 @yahoo.com. And we can work through that.
You know, we should get some of that information, whatever gets picked up, so we can put it up. Because, we just noticed the latest political incorrectness that's been displayed over Channel 9 with, is it Ben Tasker or Kyle Tasker? Kyle. And this is because Granite State Progress, that out-of-state money organization run by Xandra Rice Hawkins, has the money to go in. And they are constantly looking for those little tidbits, those little sound bites.
Well, we have to give credit where credit is due. Tammy Simons went off the rails at Kyle on this on Facebook for days.
Yeah. Yes, I can see that. But they're the ones that brought it up, publicized it and all that. And we don't have the folks on our side doing that.
Right. When I first started sending out the list of the different events, I had 3 or 4 organizations basically come back to me and go, "We don't care what they're doing." This is, this is, we have to treat this like a war. We're not shooting at each other, obviously, but we have to treat this. Yes, an ideological war, and we can't treat this like the Zimmerman letter in World War I, where we don't read other, gentlemen don't read other people's mail.
Yeah,
we need to be seeing what these people are doing. We need to try and get people in their meetings and understand how they're doing it. How else can we counter them?
Yeah, I've often said that the Republicans are still playing by Marcus of Queensberry boxing rules, while the progressives are using MMA.
Right.
But it's specifically the establishment Republicans that are doing that. And while the small R Republican base are sitting there wondering what is going on. And this is the whole thing. I mean, the establishment Republicans and the progressives, are actually in league with each other. There's collusion there. There is no question about it. The evidence is overwhelming that they work together to achieve a goal, and the people that are in the middle are the small R Republicans and the small D Democrats. And if back in my own personal history, I worked on the Perot campaign, which was, we almost had it. We almost got it. The vote was a third, and a third. So it was the closest we ever came. And the same exact thing is going on now. The people that were involved in the Perot campaign were Democrats and Republicans, small r, small d, and had this common vision, of the same vision that appears today in the grassroots kind of Tea Party-ish organizations, in these conservative organizations. Fiscally conservative, a mixture of social and moderate conservatism, and even some in the pro-campaign that were pro-choice, or it was fairly, a jumble of, but they were blue collar, and that's the thing that it is today. I mean, kind of, if people can understand, and this goes into my own personal philosophy, that they're being hammered by both the establishment Republicans and the progressives. Both parties have been stolen. They've been co-opted by these two extreme groups. And it's actually us that are in the middle, being torn apart by these two groups.
We're going to take 60 seconds and we'll get into that when we come back.
Steve McDonald here. Molly Shaheen, Senator Jean Shaheen's daughter, has a very expensive LA apartment where she lives and works, but for some strange reason, she voted here in New Hampshire. Elena Biden, niece to the man a heartbeat away from the presidency. Well, she never lived in New Hampshire at all, and she voted here and went back home. Hampshire Democrat Emma Roos invited her adult children to leave their homes in Virginia, Washington, D.C. to claim they lived in New Hampshire to vote last November, and they went back home. New Hampshire State Senator Martha Fuller Clark, vice chair of the New Hampshire Democrat State Party, she had a whole bunch of people who aren't from here living in her home, including a paid congressional staffer and an ACLU lawyer from Arkansas. They don't live here. They all claim to live here just so they can vote here and then leave. That's not all the Democrats who showed up to steal your votes and then leave, but that'll get you started. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
GrokTALK.
All right, we're back, and we were having a discussion about what Radmod said, so let's just keep going. Did you want to give him that, or you got something to say first?
Yeah, I was going to say where, Rad, you were talking about, and then I'll hand the headset over, the Republicans and the Democrats sort of coming together. I was looking at more of Angelo Codeville's the ruling class versus the country class, where those two parties have merged into one. I mean, just look at the debt ceiling that passed in D.C. That was both the Republican leadership, not the Republican membership, but joined with the Democrats to pass that along. You know, everything's dripping down. But I wanted to ask one question. You can answer it whenever you want. You guys are on our site all the time. What is it that you wish that we would do that we're not doing? And now I'll pass this over.
Personally, nothing. You guys are middle of the line. You are slamming. You have correctly identified. This is, respectfully, this is just as an observer, that both extremes on the left and on the right are damaging the middle class. And just to put it, in black and white, that appears to be kind of the philosophy of the grassroots organizations like the Tea Party. They're equally ticked off against the establishment Republicans and the progressives. And I'm a firm believer that they are distinctly separate entities. Just as much as the establishment Republicans are different from the small R Republicans, the same thing goes for the Democrats.
That's like how they try and say that the Tea Party is an anti-Democrat thing, where it's not. It started under the Republicans.
Well,
Sorry.
Yeah.
Turn you back on now.
It's an anti-ruling class thing.
Right.
Right, and that's the thing. The rank-and-file Democrats, the small D Democrats in this state, who are majority blue-collar, working-class people, have been, royally hammered by the progressives and the establishment Republicans. Because if you trace what's going on, you have to look at what's going on globally. Because what's going on globally is driving what's going on locally. And once you kind of get the picture of the movement that's going on, I'm sure, Mike, you know what I'm talking about. There's an entire, I think we've discussed this before with the IMF and especially what's going on recently. But this drive for forced austerity is killing the middle class in this country.
Right, and it's false austerity too. Governments need to go through an austerity program and slim themselves down. But when they talk about austerity, what they really mean is taking more taxes from the people that can barely afford to pay them and reducing government services. And they use that to hammer both sides. And it's just the wrong way. The government itself needs to shrink, and that's the bit they don't understand. And I would also say that establishment Republicans are progressives too. Remember, Theodore Roosevelt was one of the first progressives. They differ only in what they want to do with government, not in whether it should continue growing and continue costing more. And you on the Republican side, you have the neocon wing that want to be at war with everybody, and you have the wing that want to impose government morals. And on the other side, you've got people who just want to boss you around for the sake of bossing you around, and want to take the money of anybody who produces anything and give it to people who don't produce anything. And it worked out really well. William Bradford could tell you about that, but we forget history.
Correct. Yeah.
So, I'm at a complete loss for a question. Mike? I just derailed my train of thought.
Oh, sorry.
But hang on. If I can just chime in.
Please do. That's why you're here.
I don't know.
Now, go for it. You start it up.
People, kind of want to understand to, use the internet, research everything. That I'm mentioning here, you can find on the internet. The IMF has just put out a letter that is demanding redistributive wealth amongst all the global nations, the underserved global nations, at the exact same time that they just put, I believe it was Melendez from New Jersey, Democrat from New Jersey, just put forward the bill to give $1 billion to the IMF, who's going to take that money and is going to prop up the EU and prop up the Ukraine with it. $1 billion when they're taking pensions and Social Security and Medicaid away from our senior citizens in this country and forcing this fake austerity on the middle class that's stripping them of everything that they own.
Well, it's not that they're taking away so much of the stuff from our oldsters, although by destroying Medicare to expand Medicaid and Obamacare, they're doing that. But to be frank, $1 billion is a chump change in the size of government as we have it today. It shouldn't ever have to have said that, but it is. And secondly, it doesn't really matter a damn whether they vote money out of the public treasury, because guess what? The Federal Reserve is doing that in the trillions already. It is propping up these failed banking regimes in Central Europe, in mainland Europe, and has been doing since 2008 at least.
Right, and which is going to lead, if anybody wants to research, the drawing rights from the IMF, the special drawing of the SDR, which is going to kind of be, they've got a global economic reset coming, which is going to kind of monetize the debt and kind of wipe a lot of it out or reorganize it, which is going to lead to special drawing rights for nations. But, once again, that's, talk about squirrels, we're getting off on it. I don't want to, and I don't want to monopolize the time either.
Feel free. No, you're here as a guest. You can follow your own squirrel as you wish.
But I mean, the thing is, people need to research, especially the middle class in New Hampshire, in order to understand what's driving all these moves. You have to understand what's going on globally. And you're going to hear these words parroted by the national leaders in this country and the state leaders in this country, in the state. Okay, they're going to be mimicking exactly what's being driven at the global level. So, and this is the thing, this is how you can tell who's on the same page, by who's pushing the same agendas. So, once again, and what they're doing is they're putting the squeeze on the middle class. It's undeniable, both small R Republicans and small D Democrats, as Obamacare was intended to do, is to literally force the middle class, force austerity onto the middle class, who are considered living well above their means, force them to sell, to go bankrupt in order to afford medical treatment. There's no other way to look at it but to say that this is a direct attack, because, as I think I stated in one of my posts, the poor don't have to pay for medical care.
They don't get much of it either.
Well, it all depends. Nobody's ever been refused medical care in this country.
No, but look at the outcomes. People on Medicaid, actually, it's been shown that you're better off having no health care, being the Hispanic in the street, if you'll pardon my racism, and walking into an emergency room with no insurance, and you'll get treated pretty darn well, because A, the hospitals are required by law to serve you, and B, most states, until Obamacare subsumes it all, were making compensatory payments to those hospitals. On the other hand, if you have Medicaid, which pays for your coverage but pays very badly, you get minimal treatment, the shoddiest services, and your risk of dying is significantly higher.
And we're going to be joining them shortly. Yes.
Your risk of dying is significantly higher than if you had no insurance at all, like the Hispanic on the street.
Right, and that's the thing. This is about standardizing medical care across the economic spectrum.
It worked out so well for the Canadians and the Brits.
This is exactly.
The Native Americans have a saying where don't get sick after March. Well, the Native Americans in the United States are on single payer. Basically, the U.S. government pays for their medical care.
Yes.
They have a saying, don't get sick after March, because there's no more money left.
That's when the money runs out.
That's what we talked about last week or the week before, how this will become a two-class system where you will have the people who can afford boutique care and who will buy care outside the system, and everybody else will be trapped in the system, which will be declining and degrading and getting crappier and crappier.
And if you remember, Hillary Clinton...
Just like the Russian apparatchiks, they'll get whatever they want, and the rest of us will suffer.
Well, Hillary Clinton was specifically saying she wanted to make that against the law. Boutique medical care.
Yeah, so well, of course, because you won't, they will outlaw your ability to buy your own. Wasn't that actually the case in Canada for a while? Yes. And the people practically lynched the government over it?
Right. Yeah, there. If I remember, she was kind of spearheading this health care reform way back.
Yeah,
when she was First Lady.
Hillary Care.
And
Yep,
I mean,
that.
granted, she deserves credit for calling attention to the system before it got to the point where it was at. I mean, but once again, the solution a little bit off, off target. But once again, I mean, there was no question that the medical system in this country, although as great as it was inequitable across the economic spectrum. Understood, no problem. The solution, however, to zap the middle class in order to pay for it, when you've got our government paying out in foreign aid ungodly sums of money that could be directed back to
people
our
that
own
don't
people.
like us.
I actually, this week, I've resolved all of New Hampshire's problems in one post. I already
And that
took
was
care of
great.
it all.
Yeah,
You know, if you go read it, I said, you know what? We're in a great situation where we can create a New Hampshire advantage. If New Hampshire opens up its market to anybody who can legally sell insurance anywhere in the world, and we open up those markets, we will attract businesses, which will create jobs, which will create revenue, which will solve our revenue problem, our jobs problem, and our healthcare problem, and it'll cost us a lot less.
And you know what? There's a bill to do it. Unfortunately, the bill's problem is the bill. Let me explain.
You have a minute.
HB 1541, sponsored by Bill O'Brien. The bill would basically open up healthcare freedom in New Hampshire and poke the government in the eye with a sharp stick at the same time by allowing you to buy anything you want, where you want, when you want, crafted the way you want it, and across state lines if you want. The problem is the other bill. Because Bill O'Brien's sponsoring it, who's a great guy, the progressives of both parties are up in arms over it.
Well, I've made it clear that Republicans need to embrace this idea, they need to sell the idea, they need to push its benefits, and they need to run on it. Because rather than just running against Obamacare, rather than just saying, well, what they have sucks, and it does, everybody knows it, except for a very small percentage of people, you need to go out and say you have a solution, and it's a real solution, and it'll work, and it'll solve a jobs problem, it'll solve a revenue problem, it'll solve a healthcare problem.
Go out and read HB 1541. It's a terrific bill. And the bill sponsoring it is a terrific bill, too. The thing is, we need to get some Republicans or conservatives that are going to stand up and say, I'm going to run on this, and I'm going to win, and I'm going to push this forward in November.
Do you guys want to share any contact information?
The charge of the cavalry.
You don't have to, but if you want anybody to reach out to you for anything.
I'm on the...
You're on the internet. Go to GrokTALK.com, read their comments. You can follow their discuss feeds because you just click on their name and you can see all the good things they comment to the world. My name's Steve McDonald. I am here with Skip Murphy and Mike Rogers. Thank you to Alan and Radical Moderate for coming on the program. We'll be back next week with more news and information. I'd also like to remind you that the last Saturday of the month we will not have a show, so don't try to listen to it. Have a great weekend.
Grok TV.